Hello and welcome to the Wet Palate Podcast. I'm super excited to host this guest. Please welcome the executive chef of Elastika in the Design District, Joe Anthony. Woo! First things first, I have something extremely important I need to ask you above all else. Can you please confirm right here, right now, that the cheese cart is staying?
Ooh.
No!
It's going through many different phases is what's going to happen, actually.
I think we're done recording and cut.
We're actually going to make it into a dessert cart, that's what's going to happen.
Oh, okay.
So we're not losing the cart. We're just altering it a little bit.
But it will have cheese.
We will have cheese of some kind.
On the cart.
I don't know about the cart.
Oh, I'm so heartbroken. How do I start the interview like this? I wanted you to say
I feel like we got to start all over. People
hi,
are going to get the bad impression already.
I love that thing.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have an actual cheese cart in Miami. Not one like that.
I'm still new to Miami. I'm a Floridian, but I'm still new to Miami, so I don't know this. I guess we're gonna work through all these issues of cheese carts and everything else.
It's a big deal to me. I've always said for years, like, why doesn't anyone? There's cheese selection and cheese courses,
sure,
but an actual cart with tableside service like that. Beauty and the Butcher has one, but it's a specific kind of service for one cheese versus all the options. So.
Gotcha.
Food for thought.
Well, to ease your pain about this a little bit more is that we're constantly changing things there. Always about constant evolution and trying to make things better. So who's to say it won't come back?
Okay, it's going to come back. Okay. So something else. So when I first heard about Elastika opening, I have to admit, I kind of overlooked it. We've had and continue to have so many openings and so many New Yorkers. I know you're not a New Yorker, but I'll get to that. Coming to Miami to bring copycat concepts that I didn't want to give it the time of day. You know, just a press release, Sky, New York, here we go again. That's until number one, I realized that you're actually from South Florida and we're returning home. Number two, you were bringing a unique concept for Miami.
Certainly hope so.
And number three, Gabriel Kreuther gave you quite the send-off before leaving, which I find unusual, and I will ask about more later. But I'm a big Kreuther fan, and this told me you were well admired, respected, and supported there, which then also told me this was a great loss for New York and a big win for Miami. So I thankfully started to take a closer look, and here we are. So let's dive in.
Awesome.
You're from Delray Beach.
I am.
And got started at 32 East.
This is true, on
there.
Atlantic Avenue.
Tell me about that. And is it true that you've never held a job that wasn't in the food industry?
This is true. So this started when I was about 15, 16 years old. I needed a job. I needed to be able to support myself. And I worked at 32 East as a busboy. My friend actually got me the job there. So it was something that was, it wasn't a career choice. It wasn't a desire. It was something that was just like, hey, I need some money for my gas and stuff like that. So I went there and, I really admired all the different people. They were working hard. It was different than any other restaurant I've been in. It's like they had a purpose, right? So they also worked with a lot of integrity and they cared about what they did. And I was like, well, this is interesting. So I really kind of got like, at a young age, that glimpse of working hard and getting that reward for working hard. And then as I moved up, 2 years in, I became a food runner. So you get closer and closer to the kitchen. And then it would be seeing these guys in the back and they were just, doing their magic and working hard, also playing hard at the end of the night, which I, as a young boy, also admired. But the food was incredible. The food was something that I never experienced before. And being a food runner, they would send me stuff under the pass, right? It would be like, oh, I made a little bit extra this, try this. I made a little bit extra that, try that. And I was like, wow, never experienced things like this. So after years of doing that, it was like 18 or 19 years old, I was like, I think I want to go to culinary school. And I told the chef that. And he said, if you go to culinary school, I'll take you under my wing and hire you right away. And that's what I did. So I've never had another job outside the industry. I never looked back and just kept on going.
Great segue into my next question, which ultimately you decided to go to culinary school. Is it something that you would do again, given the option?
That's a tough question. The one thing I'll say, I'll start with the negative. this industry is very demanding. It takes a lot of your time if you want to achieve something. If you want to go far, you have to dedicate. You're going to be missing a lot of social events. You're going to be missing a lot of weddings, sometimes even funerals. That was the old school way. There are no sick days, again, the old school way. And it really just 12 hours a day was, the kind of time it took to make something, whether you were working them on the clock or not. Like, you had to dedicate a lot of time and hours to your craft if you wanted to be good. Would I do it again? Yeah, because I love cooking. But from a career point of view, and now as a family man, I look for that balance. I look to be able to, spend time with my daughter and my wife. And, there's some nights I wish I was home and cooking for them, but this is the life we chose, and she fully supports me on it, so I'm lucky for that. It's an industry I love, but it's also an industry that will chew you up and spit you out if you do not give your all. And I guess what it'll come back down to me is, like, it's all or nothing. You can't, like, dabble around in it. It's all or nothing if you want to make yourself in this industry.
And you were not just going to culinary school. You were working, right? And?
Yep.
So that's basically all you were doing.
Sure. I got up and went to school at 7 a.m. till about noon, and then drove straight to work till, depending if it was the weekday, 10 to 11, or the weekend was 11 or 12. And school was 5 days a week, and then work was 5 to 6 days a week, sometimes 7.
So you definitely were all in from the beginning.
For sure. And I think the positive part about being in this industry is all the people you meet, they become your family. You develop a lot of relationships. You work long hours with these people that they almost become more family than your family, as bad as that sounds, but these are lifelong bonds. And I've been able to travel all over the world because of this, and
right.
It all comes down to being able to do the thing I love, which is cook food, and be able to put my expression on it and create. So there's a lot of positivity that comes with it as well.
Okay. And then New York happened.
Yeah.
And it happened big. You ended up at some impressive kitchens working with Daniel and the Modern.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
2009 is when I officially went up to the city. My first job in the city was at Restaurant Daniel. And I'll tell you that I feel like I didn't even know how to cook when I first started there. It was that extreme. So
you used to dine there with your uncle or family?
Yeah, you did your research here. You did it well. Yeah, so my uncle, who's a dentist, my Uncle George, is a cook at heart. He's a chef at heart. So once he found out that I was interested in this stuff too, it would be one of those things where it's like, hey, Joe, come up. We're going to go to New York City. Pick the places you want to eat. And it would usually be a tasting menu. So it would be like Per Se, the Modern, all those different places, Daniel. Yeah.
So then to be in that kitchen now on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, it was intense. It really was. I mean, when I got there, it was 3 months after is when they got their 3rd Michelin star. So like all that build up, all that hard work that they were doing, it was the most intense kitchen I've ever been in, but also the most I've ever learned in a kitchen in that period of time. Like, I'm still using the index, the repertoire from Daniel to this day. Met a lot of great people, the chefs that were absolutely outstanding. Their work ethic, and people like Jean-Francois and Eddie LaRue, that's the chef and the chef de cuisine. I mean, they could have ran that kitchen all by themselves. They were that talented and that fast. It was just an eye-opener to what a New York City Michelin restaurant really is. It was very extreme at the beginning. It was very tough. It was something that took a time to adapt to. But once you got it, it became kind of like that addicting kind of like feeling of like, okay, we're going in here and like ready to push today. Like, it's going to be a big day. It's going. Oh man, it's 250 covers tonight, 3 Michelin. Yeah. Like, here we go.
I imagine getting that and then having to sustain that, right, to retain that 3rd star, which they ultimately lost.
They did.
Years later.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on it. I mean, it goes back to one of those things of like, I don't know, because they started doing a lot more covers towards the end of that, and it's very hard to maintain 3 Michelin doing 250 covers a night.
Right.
That's a different kind of beast, especially with the finesse and the detail that they have on each plate.
Not very common, because most 3-star restaurants don't do that many.
No, I can't think of many. I mean, Le
Right.
Bernardin, but also the food is much more simple.
Yeah.
You know, Daniel, the food is super complex. There's a lot of duos, a lot of trios. The food changed off. It was really a tough kitchen to work in, but also like really rewarding to come out of that.
Good. And then how were you there before you moved to Modern?
A year. So in the places that I worked in Delray, I did, you know, the first place was 3 years, and then the last place was about 4 or 5 years. So I wanted to kind of like do my year to year for the first couple places in New York. So I did a year at Daniel, and then I went to actually Union Square Cafe after that for 1 year.
That's right.
Yeah, I wanted to be closer to the Union Square market, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
It's one of the best markets in the
Mhm.
country, if not the world.
Yeah.
And the restaurant was known for just using all the produce. We would get the produce in there still warm from the sunlight, never touch a refrigerator yet. So I went there for about a year and a half and worked with Carmen Qualiata, who was also worked with Michael Chiarello out at, I forget what his restaurant was called in Napa. Anyways, so I worked with him, but he was really great with pasta.
Not Red.
No, it was back in the day.
Okay.
Now it's going to bother me.
I know.
Anyways, so I worked with Carmen Qualiata for a little bit, who was absolutely amazing in pasta and stuff like that. Learned a lot, and that still to this day, I still make a lot of the pastas. Of course,
Yeah.
put my own twist on it, and you know, I don't like to steal things and without, you know, curating them to our cuisine.
Yeah.
So I stayed there for about a year and a half, and then it was still in Union Square Hospitality Group. Moved to the Modern because I wanted to get back into fine dining, and that's when I met Gabriel Kreuther.
Right, when he was there.
Yeah.
That was 2012.
Yeah, around that time, 2012, 20, yeah.
Because I was looking up
2013.
because I went for the first time around that time, but I think
Okay.
it was a few months before you got there.
Okay. I
looking
know
at
it
the
was a
pictures.
September or something like that. I
You
forget
know
the
what
year.
they had? A cheese
Yeah,
cart.
they did have a cheese cart. They had it.
They no
Danielle as
longer
well.
have it. I'm so mad they no longer have the cheese cart.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I haven't been back since.
really?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
We had a cheese cart at Gabriel's.
I don't think I had. Well, I went for lunch, but I don't think I had a cheese cart. When I went.
Okay.
Okay.
Still have it.
So, then so I wanted to talk about your relationship with Kreuther,
Sure.
and because you were there for a very long time until we stole you.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, Gabriel. Man, what can I say about the guy? I owe him a lot. You know, he gave me a lot of opportunities. He gave me a lot of trust. I think it was a relationship that fed off, you know, both of our energies back and forth. He's not just a chef. He's a friend. You know, I've had a lot of life experiences with him. I was able to travel with him all over the world. We did a lot of events together. We did a lot of creative thinking together. I helped develop that restaurant. I was pretty much the first employee, you know.
Wow,
so,
right, because you moved from one to the other.
One of them, yeah. And, you know, I remember the conversation at the Modern. It was like, hey, I'm going to open up my own place. You coming with me or not? What's up? I was like, yeah, of course, chef, I'm coming with you, you know. So we would get up and, you know, 6 o'clock in the morning and go do the blueprints for Gabriel's, and then go to the Modern and do a full day's work. And, you know, the people don't know that Gabriel's used to be an office space. So when we first walked in, it was just cubicles. So when you see Gabriel's now, it's this big, beautiful dining room and spacious kitchen. It was just all office space, and everything had to be completely built out. But I was very fortunate to be part of that. And when I first actually became a sous chef at the Modern, he gave me one of the most valuable things that I still take to this day is that, you know, don't worry about titles, basically. Don't worry about your title. Act the role, people will know. So it's more about acting the role rather than just saying, hey, I'm a sous chef. Hey, I'm a chef. It's like, great.
Right.
If you have to tell people that, then you've already lost.
Right.
You know? So, I mean, I worked with him total of 12 years. So 3 years at the Modern,
Right,
and 8 years at Gabriel through opening to the end, and had a great relationship. You know, I think, like I said, I owe him a lot.
So Gabriel Kreuther currently has 2 stars. Did it start at 2? Did you get 2 right away?
No, we started as one.
And how long before it got 2?
So, was it about 4 years? So we opened in 2015, and I think we got the second either in 18 or 19. I'm not sure. I don't remember off the top of my head. But it was a a big feat. It was something that was very rewarding to us. It was,
Especially in New York.
yeah, big time. I remember looking it up and going, I Googled how many 2 Michelin-star restaurants in the world.
Yeah.
And at the time, there's 417. So when you're thinking about it, you're like 417 in New York. Okay, that's good. 417 in the country, that's really good. And then 417 in the world, you're like, wow, that's like a crazy percentage to be among that group of people. So we were very proud. But at the same time, Michelin is not our North Star. I think it has to be a byproduct of what we're doing.
Well, you just said, don't go by the title.
Right.
Just do the work.
Exactly.
And it'll speak for itself.
Yeah.
You
So
don't need to announce, hey, we're a 2 Michelin-like restaurant.
right,
you know?
we aspire to be 2 Michelin. Like,
Right.
well, sure. Why not just go for 3 then? We aspire to be 3.
Yay.
Yeah. So
Right.
at that
Right.
point,
Do the work.
yeah, you have to do the work and you have to let it speak for itself. It can't be, like I said, it can't be your guiding star to be like, okay, what's our goals, guys? 2 Michelin. And like, okay, what does that look like?
Right.
I don't know.
What do we think it looks like? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
actually had this conversation with the general manager at the time, Paul Lee, where I was like, man, are we becoming like a copy paste Michelin restaurant? Are we just looking around and just like fitting in with the parameter because that's what the guy down the street is doing, or that's what, this person on Instagram is doing? And we kind of looked at each other and we're like, yeah, let's not do that. So we started to change kind of like our thought process behind it, where it was like, we want to do fun things. We want to do things that we believe in, whether we think that it fits, quotations, Michelin restaurants or not. We're just going to stand behind what we do and make it fit to what we think is the caliber of restaurant we are, regardless of Michelin or not.
That has to be hard because in today's social media world, you can't help but see everything, and maybe something catches you off guard, like, oh, they sauced this, or they played it this way, or they're offering this pairing,
Yeah.
or something, and then how do you not second guess yourself? Or that's hard. I can see
100%.
how that's so hard.
Instagram and social media is a double-edged sword.
And the thing is, it's not going away.
No.
As much as everyone says, oh,
No.
it's not going away.
And it gets me, and like, it's one of those things where you can look at it and you can be like, that's really cool. I will take a piece of that. I'm inspired by that. I'm happy for that person's success. But then
Right.
the other half is like, I'm not good enough. That
Yeah.
person's doing that. And
Yeah.
hey, he's 30 years old and I'm going to be 40 this year. And you're
Yeah.
like, what is my life? And, it's
Right.
the Instagram, social media
Ooh.
dilemma, that we all
Yeah.
have to deal with nowadays.
Yeah.
And it's
And I guess it has its value because you, like I, for example, I will go somewhere and dine, and I will get, it's usually the risotto problem, right? Like, people don't know how to plate a risotto because you just plop it on a plate. It looks like barf. I'm sorry.
mhm,
You know?
sure.
And so things like that, or I'll get something and I'm thinking, if they would only, this is delicious, but it looks awful.
Sure.
Does it matter? Should it matter? I don't know, because when they put the plate in front of me, I was turned off.
Yeah.
So going to the social media aspect of it, I see how, as a chef, you would see how other people plate it, or how, not you, I'm sure you know how to plate a risotto, but, just in general, sometimes I'm thinking, why didn't they think about this? Did they not see how this photograph's so horrible?
Yeah.
Where it could be plated so much nicer and just elevate the plate. Yeah,
Sure.
You got the taste, which is the hardest part. Now plate it correctly. I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that also depends on where you're going and
Well,
what the expectations are,
I do
obviously,
mostly
right?
fine dining, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's also very hard too, because it's like you can take something great flavor, as you said, that's, ugly delicious. But when you start to kind of manipulate it to look good on the plate,
Right. Well, like brown food, just,
you have
Yeah.
to, sometimes refinement takes away a little bit of flavor, if that makes sense. Where it's like when we're creating dishes at Gabriel's, and even now at Elastika, where it's like, yeah, we can make food taste good, but then you have to make it look good at the same time, and that's a whole different element. It's part of the recipe itself. It's not
yeah, it is.
It's not like, okay, we nailed down this recipe, now just here's the plating.
Right.
Sometimes you have to go through a big process to make that happen. And one of the biggest losses from that sometimes is the manipulation to make it look good, that you sacrifice the taste. That's always the thing that you want to try to,
The aesthetics part of it.
yeah,
Instagrammable moments.
You want to mitigate that and balance it.
I know. At what point did your interest in nutrition peak enough for you to become certified in functional nutrition? And can you explain what that is, what the certification entails, and is it renewed annually?
Yeah, so I'll share a story first where, I was standing over my stove in my apartment in New York City, and I basically realized there that the way that I cook personally and cook professionally contradict themselves. Meaning, I'm a pretty fit, healthy guy in my personal life. I enjoy going to the gym. I enjoy exercising. I enjoy feeding my family well. We are pretty conscious about what we eat because I'm the one that cooks it all. So, but at that moment, I realized everything at work was like, just make it taste good and make it creative. That was the most important part, to give an experience, right? And that's what people ultimately want at the end of the day. They want to come in, they want to get something from it, they want to experience, and of course the food has to taste good. But the other element to that for me was, okay, but as cooks or as chefs, we have to also eat that food ourselves. And I don't want to eat it every day, so why am I serving it to guests? That was kind of my dilemma. So it was kind of like one of those things where it didn't necessarily happen overnight, where it was like, okay, now I'm just cooking nutritious, nourishing food all the time, right? It took a process, and it took, a lot of educating myself and going back and relearning, and a lot of the things that I thought were actually nutritious or healthy turns out probably weren't, and I think that comes from education or a lack of, in America's food society, I'll say, not to so much to the consumers, but I think to the big corporations that are selling these things.
French fries are super healthy, right? They're gluten-free.
Yeah, they're potatoes.
And they're gluten-free.
They're vegan.
They're vegan.
Right.
It's good. It's good for you.
Yeah, you can live off French fries. It's all good. So I was really compelled to align my vision, where it was like I wanted to be able to be in my kitchen where I could eat anything that I wanted without any guilt, and also have the guests come in and feel comfortable about knowing where their food was coming from and how it was prepared. That was a huge angle for me. So I thought one of the big first steps for me was to actually, okay, now I want to back this up. I want to get a piece of paper or a certification that says, like, I did the work. It's something that I was always interested in anyway. It was kind of part of my hobby, the podcasts I listen to, the books I read, things of that nature. So I went to this company called Mind Body Green, and I'm actually friends with the owners, Jason and Colleen Waka, who actually live in Miami now.
Yay.
Yeah, and they're also members at our club. So I was doing my research, and a lot of the nutrition certification places were like, it didn't really seem to fit for what I wanted. It was more of like a career change. And then I came to Mind Body Green, and I talked to them, and it was like, yeah, I want to learn about nutrition to apply to my career already, not to change my career. They're like, yeah, this is absolutely something you can do with that. And they were already, their courses were, their curriculums, I should say, were taught by people I was already reading their books, like Dr. Mark Hyman or Will Cole or Kelly LeVeque. All these people I was already listening to or reading from were then your teachers. And I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. So I took that and graduated, and then from at that point,
which was how long of a course?
Well, it's an online course, and you can do it in your own time. It took me, I want to say, about 4 months, and that's getting up every morning and doing it before going and working a 12 to 14-hour day.
Fun.
Yeah, exactly. But it was something I really enjoyed doing, and it's something I still refresh myself on, and I thought it was a big turning point for me because I learned a lot, but it was also that mental shift where it was like, okay, this is me now. This is my identity. And that became a huge part of like my ethos now, especially applying that to Elastika, where it's like good tasting food should be good for you. And that's where we really strive on that, where it's like we take all our backgrounds, all our inspiration, everything I learned from at the places I was talking about, from 32 East, Daniel, Union Square, Modern to the Gabriels. Now, how do we apply that in a more nourishing way? And it's not about, say, elimination of ingredients, but it's about finding the best grown or the best cultivated from people that believe the same thing, right? So we're not gluten-free, right? I don't think that wheat or flour is inherently bad for you. I think bad wheat or flour is bad for you.
The one you use,
Castle Valley Mills.
Was it Einkorn?
Yeah, we use several from Einkorn flour.
Einkorn,
We use bolted whole wheat. We'll use spelt.
Which are tolerated by the body better.
Correct. And, this place, Castle Valley Mills, that's in Pennsylvania, I've been using them for a very long time. They source properly. They believe in the same thing that I do. And they also use a stone wheel. So basically they grind the flours. So it's never fully it's never fully fine. It still has the bran, the germ, the endosperm in it, which has all the nutrients, right? It's a different flour. It's harder to use than conventional flour because of that, but it's more nourishing. It's more nutritious. So when I say about health, it's not about dieting. Like, we're not trying to become a place that's vegan, keto, vegetarian, Atkins, like all this different stuff. Like, sure, can we do it? Like, we know it, we're educated in it, but that's not what we're about. What we're about is providing nourishing food, and even to the degree of like teetering the line a little bit, like I just said with flours, where it's like pasta and pizza might not be looked or perceived as a health food.
Right.
But if you put, healthy ingredients that are coming from the farms out in Homestead as the toppings, and then your dough is a 3-day ferment from flour that's coming from a reputable place with no pesticides, how is it bad for you, really?
Beautiful. Is that your take on something that we're going to be seeing soon?
Well, we already have it.
A pizza?
Yeah, we have it for the lunch menu only, yeah.
I didn't realize you were open for lunch, okay.
Yeah, we're open for lunch. We have our pizza on our lunch menu, and then also for our social hour, which goes from 4 to 6.
Okay.
Or 3 to 6.
Good to know. All this time, we're going to get to Elastika in a second, but just kind of keeping with the background. All this time, did you visit Florida at all? Did you keep up with what was happening here with food?
From a distance, social media has allowed me to do so.
Right.
Seeing people like Jeremy Ford and Brad Kilgore, those were the main people that, because I've met and have done events with and, have actually had personal relationships with very minimally. Those are the people that, I was watching from a distance.
You did good. And when and how did the opportunity to open in Miami happen?
So I would say my wife and I were seriously talking about it 3 years before we actually moved, which was last October.
Manifested it.
Yeah, it was also a lot of different conversations with a lot of different people, and it was like, through the interviews, it was like, no. There was so many no's. It was like, no, it didn't make sense. This place didn't make sense. The fit didn't make sense until we got to the company that I work for now, which is Woodhouse, and I talked to a person, Andrew Lumsden, and we just hit it off, and it was like, okay, I actually feel pretty invigorated after this conversation. Like, let me dig in further, right? And that's when the owner, the president, and Andrew, we all met out in New York City and had dinner, and I felt really good about the company, what they stood for, and I was like, okay, here we are. Like, let's sign the dotted line. I feel good, and let's make the move, babe.
Awesome. And at that point, that's when I was like, who is this guy? I'm looking up, and I go on social media, and I see the Kreuther goodbye party.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. Was that a surprise? No.
Surprise-ish, not real. I mean, what he got me, yeah, for sure. He got
jersey.
Yeah, the Bernie Parent jersey, because I'm a huge hockey fan. So Bernie Parent was one of the Philadelphia Flyers' best goalies of all time. So he got a signed jersey for me, which was huge. Then that huge vintage, Magnum of not Krug, Dom Perignon. And then, he gave me a copy also of the first menu from day one at Gabriel's.
That's nice.
Yeah, and I remember opening it up and going, oh my God, I will never do this food again, because it was 8 years ago, and like the progression of the food that we ended up with was like, it was laughable, but it was also super special to see it. It was like, that's when you can put a timeline on, your progression and the way that you left. It was a beautiful thing to see right up front like that.
I don't know why, like, that struck me. There was so much love in those photos, and just so much pride. And it really, for me, I mean, I'm curious, so I'd like look into these things, but it really changed my mind. I said, oh, this is something to pay attention to, I think, but it looked like a happy time. Everyone seemed so sad and happy for you at the same time, sad to miss you and happy for you.
Yeah, I still talk to a lot of those guys too. I was always, I think once I changed my mindset on nutrition was also the way that I changed my mindset in general, because when you talk about health, there's also the psychology of health. And that's when I really switched things around at Gabriel's from being a yelling, screaming kitchen to what's the best for our long-term kind of mentality. What's the win-win? What's the win-win for the cooks? What's the win-win for us? It's a mutual investment that we're both doing here. Like, the last thing that I always say to a cook before I hired them is that if you don't walk out of here better than the way you came in, then I failed. Then we didn't do our job, right? So once we kind of had that buy-in, and it really took a long journey for me, smooth and steady, rocky roads depending on the day, but when you come from the places that are intense as where I came from, like I came from that old school kitchen of yelling, screaming, pots and pans thrown at you.
Which is why when I hear someone say, oh, that chef was mean, I'm kind of like, well,
I mean, meaner back in the day. That it was a lot more tolerable back then, that's for sure. Yeah. No sick days, like I said earlier. Like it was just,
you suck it up.
Yeah. So when you change that whole kind of mentality, it also changed the whole dynamic. We weren't looking for people anymore. Like we didn't have like a huge turnover rate. It was quite the opposite. We had a logjam. People didn't want to leave, and people were coming in early to do their work, and it was like, what are you doing here? It's 3-4 hours before your shift.
Right.
And then when they look at you, like, I'm here to learn. I want to participate. I want to do this. I want to do that. And you're like, what can I say? Like, I'm not going to deprive you of that because you make this an hour, but I think that also part of your pay is your knowledge, your skill set.
Right.
You get paid for what you know. So here's your hourly rate, but this is also the value that you'll get from learning, working with us. So it was really that whole thing that combined everything together that made it a great, working place, that I still talk to a lot of people today that, they still message me, hey, what do you think about this? Asking for advice, or, hey, miss you. Thank you for this. I just got one like 2 weeks ago. It was like, hey, I was just thinking about you. I really appreciate, the knowledge that you gave me, and this is what I'm doing now, and I owe you a lot of credit. And that like melts me, because
of course,
as I get older in my age, that's a huge part of who I want to be as well. I'm not the young buck anymore that's just on the front lines all the time. I'm
a mentor.
I certainly hope so. I try to be.
For those who don't know, Elastika is a modern American restaurant on the first floor of the Moore building in the Design District. Tell us now, present the restaurant to the listeners who might not know about it.
Yeah, so Elastika, it got its name from the sculpture in there, Zaha Hadid. So she was an artist that basically, put this sculpture up that goes through, it touches all the levels almost, specifically the 1st through 3. And when you walk into the Moore, it's just glorious. Yeah. I mean, that was when Stunning. I came down to visit, I was like, whoa, what is this place?
You're not in Delray
sculpture
anymore.
There. Yeah, sure. I mean, even at working a lot of the places in New York City, it was like, this is an amazing dining room. It really is beautiful.
Well, it wasn't even a dining room, really.
No.
Right.
No, we turned it into
This is going to be
an
exactly. Amazing dining
room. You could see it.
Because I've been to events there, and I'm thinking, what? They put a restaurant there?
Yeah. I mean, when I first saw it, it was all concrete. So you just saw the bones of it, but the sculpture was still there, wrapped up and everything. But it's beautiful. The ground floor restaurant is open to the public. The rest is more for, the private members, and a hotel that we're opening up on next month. So it would be 13 rooms up there. But anyway, Elastika, it got its name from that artist and the sculpture. And the food, is exactly what I just said, where it's like, we think that good tasting food should also be good for you. It's ever evolving. We've been open for, over 4 months now. And it's one of those things where we've changed the menu, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 times. We tend to just do a weekly or bi-weekly change of like 3 or 4 items, just constantly changing depending on, what a lot of the ingredients are coming from Homestead. So seasonality right now in Florida for the summertime is not optimal. So there's a lot of short windows.
Well, Friday's fall. We're almost there.
Sure, on the calendar.
I know.
I don't know if it's going to feel like that outside. So, I mean, that's our drive, is to be able to, use as much local ingredients as possible or nourishing ingredients as possible and just have fun with it. We're a place where I think we want to be creative, we want to be ambitious, but we also want to be approachable at the same time and provide an experience.
I really want to drill this part in. Like you said, you are what you eat. It's another quote you've said before, and your approach to food there, because I think it's important to explain it. I think the first time I came in, I was really curious about the piece of bread. Someone had said, oh, they just served this toast with the tartare, was it?
Yeah.
I was like, I want to know if they're going to serve me that toast. So I get the toast, and then when I asked about it, I got the explanation as to why it's not just a toast.
Correct.
So maybe let's talk about some of the items on the menu or coming up, and where all that approach is heavy on there.
Yeah, for sure. That toast got a lot of topics. It got a lot of spotlight. That's for sure at the beginning.
Is it still there?
No, not that specific one.
Okay.
We adapted. I mean, I wanted to leave it on just to kind of
like leave it on.
Yeah, but that's like I just said. It's part of like who we are. We just change. We evolve.
Good.
So the reason that's not just a piece of toast is because of the flours that I was just describing. It's a percentage of einkorn flour. It's a percentage of bolted flour. There's a ferment that goes into it. It's very hearty and nutritious at the same time. So it's something that we believe in is, utilizing the best ingredients that are coming from the best places, not from a financial point of view.
Right.
We do a lot of in-house ferments and infusions and things like that.
There's a lot of bread there's a lot of accompanying bread with courses. A lot more than usual, I think.
I mean, we have our focaccia, we have our country loaf, which now was the substitute for that einkorn bread, is now a bolted loaf. Mm-hmm. So bolted flour refers to the amount of ash that's actually left after you burn it to figure out how much whole wheat is actually in it. So the one that we're using is about 80 to 90% whole wheat. So that's the bread that we're using to make for our pate right now. So we have a white peach and chicken liver pate, and that's what we serve with the bread. Other ingredients along that, I mean, it's all pretty simple and straightforward for the most part on that. We use a lot of olive oil. We use a lot of different herbs. Got introduced to a new oil, 0 acre oil, which is coming from fermentable sugarcane oil, which is a neutral oil that's also good for you. So this is the newest thing that I've been using, that we've been using, has been something that is both good for health and for planet. So it's reusable, it's regenerative, but it's also coming from a place, where they believe in the same thing that we do, where it's about providing an oil that's not, maybe you should back up a little bit here. The separation between a seed oil and a good cold pressed oil is the seed oil. Basically, when you introduce high heat to it, it changes the chemical properties of it, creating free radicals, which make it much more obstructive to your body. Mm-hmm. When you have something that's cold pressed, that's the extraction naturally of its fats, right? So we stay away from high heat extracted oils. We don't use them at all. Now, when it comes to cold press, the oils that we do use are olive oil, coconut, avocado, and natural like butter and stuff like that too, because butter can be good for you. But 0 acre oil is coming from fermentable sugarcane oil. That basically is our neutral oil now. So instead of using, something like a canola or a rapeseed oil, that's what we use.
Miami tends to be aloof with restaurant openings, excited at first and then indifferent. How has the reception been so far this year? Reception
has been pretty overwhelmingly good. It's not to say that we don't get our negatives. That's for sure. We're a restaurant. We're going to get that. But a lot of guests that, I would say the underlining thing that they say is there's really nobody like you in Miami. right? We're kind of our own niche, which we want. We want to do our own thing. And, just last week, somebody's like, you guys are doing something great. Don't change. And I was like, okay, thanks. That's very validating. So I think we're received very well so far. We also opened up in the hardest time of the year, in summer.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a rocky road at the beginning. And I think the silver lining in that, though, will be that we had the opportunity to kind of get our systems down and be able to work our areas and get used to them before we actually, get really pummeled in season.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, that's what everybody tells me.
Yeah. What are the immediate goals for Elastika, especially going into season?
Whew. I mean, behind the scenes is opening up all the spaces. So it's still not fully open from the hotel. We're actually going to be opening up for breakfast in Elastika as well because of the hotel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's going to be a full...
Elastika breakfast or just throw in a continental kind of breakfast?
Oh, no, it'll be Elastika breakfast. It's going to start out short and simple to begin. Let us get our bearings just like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's going to be everything that we just applied.
And you're doing an omakase, remember? Talked about.
That's for the membership.
The membership. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a sushi counter up there, which is kind of like, it is its own department. And right now it's sushi menu. And then once we get honed into the season a little bit more, we'll have an omakase.
Okay.
Yeah.
Miami is a different animal than Delray Beach, as we've established. Do you feel like you've settled in already?
No, I do not. Miami feels like a different part of Florida in general. That's for sure. It is.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to come down here, all the time as a kid, a teenager for skateboarding. It's a big city, so I'm still kind of familiar with it.
Right.
But it's its own beast. It's its own scene. It's its own this and that, So, I mean, it's only been a year, and a lot of it's been dedicated to opening this restaurant. So, I don't feel like I've fully gotten out to really experience all that Miami has to offer as well.
That's my next question. If you've been able to dine out at all, and if there's any place that has caught your attention.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I still need my date night with my wife. We need to get out. And,
you do.
Stubborn Seed has always been fun. I really
love.
Yeah, I really respect him, and I like how ambitious it is for South Florida restaurant.
Yeah.
I think it was one that's kind of leading the way for like, okay, here's something a little bit different on a tasting menu. Here's something that's a little bit out of the ordinary. Because I do think that Miami has a lot of the restaurants that are the same. Like they almost feel like you need to have your ceviche and you need to have your this and that. And you're like, well, you should totally have those places, but not every place should be that, right? Every place should kind of have its own identity. I think Stubborn Seed does that very well. Boya Day is very enjoyable as well. I've had, several great meals. Maddie's, she's been getting a lot of great accolades as well lately. And that's literally like a 5-minute walk from my house, my apartment. So
love it there.
Yeah. So that's been a great place to go as well.
Got some.
Yeah.
I want to hear about your Japan experience. That's my dream trip and how it changed you and what you learned.
Yeah. Amazing. One of the best experiences of my life. So it was through a society called the Gohan Society, which is a cultural exchange between, Japanese chefs and also American chefs. I was lucky enough to be, one of the first representative, definitely from my restaurant. And what it is basically you have several chefs from America. They go over to Japan for a period of time, and they see different parts of Japan, different cities. They work also in some kitchens. They experience all the lifestyle, the different craftsmanships, the different food, obviously. And then they come back and then basically host those same people in Japan back at their restaurants. Yeah, so it's a big cultural exchange. And it was beautiful because the way I spent, it was 9 or 10 days out there. The way that it was spent, it went from super small town to middle-sized town to big town. So a place called Yamanaka, which was on the West Coast, like super small. Like you go in there and it's like even the people like to do their craft first had to make the tools to make their craft. So it was pretty crazy to see that. It's like, yeah, I make wood, but first I have to be a blacksmith to make my tools. So they had to make all their tools to then make the tools to make wood, right? And then to a middle city, which was Kanazawa, which was like in between, like it still had that old world feel, new age technology, but it still had a lot of heritage and soul to it. And then we ended in Tokyo, which is just like, you know, another amazing New York City, basically. Absolutely incredible.
I'm dying to go.
It's one of those places where it's like, okay, you go to, you know, oh, I've been to France, check it off. I've been to this, check it off. You go to Japan, you're like, I'm going there next. Like, I want to go back.
Right. Oh.
And if we didn't have my daughter, we would have went.
Right. That's why my husband and I say, like, every single day, if we didn't have the kids, you know where we would be.
Sure.
Oh, what do you do? What do you do? Oh my God.
I'm just waiting till she's old enough to remember.
Yeah.
And then it's true. Like, okay, now you can remember. Now we're going. Like, because that'll be great for her too.
That's great. And then right your dashi experience, learning to make the they're done like dashi.
Exactly. So basic, and it's something that I use all the time. You know, especially at home. I think it's a basis of my cuisine at home for sure, and a lot of what I do at work. You know, and dashi its essence is just kombu, which is dried seaweed, dried kelp, and filtered water. But then you can add other things, you know, when you add katsubushi, which is dried bonito flakes, or, you know, shiitake mushrooms or whatever, and you can make your own broth. The basis is seaweed, and then most commonly with also mushrooms and bonito.
I want to go.
You should definitely go. I would highly recommend.
You are a hockey fan, as you said. Are you a Florida Panthers fan? Say yes.
I wish. I wish.
They
just won the cup.
And now, no.
I mean, I have this pretty embroiled on me right now. So.
Oh, man. Okay, fine.
They're my second team. I wish they were my favorite team
that's
because,
a better answer.
You know, they won the cup. So it's like, they're in a much better place than my Flyers, that's for sure. I grew up, though, you know, funny thing is I was born in Georgia. I only stayed there 6 months, right? And then my family moved down to South Florida. So I still consider myself a Floridian because I've never been back to Georgia.
Right.
And then my dad was from South Jersey, which is East Philly. And then my mom was from Allentown. So I grew up being a Flyers fan from birth, right? And the Panthers came in 1993.
I know, it's very new.
Yeah, so I was already a Flyers fan before.
But second place, not too bad.
Yeah.
Considering that, how do you feel about the Michelin Guide in general coming to Florida? And I know we talked about not letting it lead the way, but is this something you would love for Elastika?
I would love to have a Michelin star in Elastika, but as I said earlier, it is not our North Star. It is something where, you know, would be validation of our hard work and all the dedication that we put into it and the care. Do I think the team deserves it? I do, but that's not up to me to say. I think that Michelin in South Florida in general is going to be really great for Miami especially. Coming from hockey now, one of Wayne Gretzky's quotes was, never go where the puck is, go where the puck is going. And I feel like that's what Miami is right now. It's such an up-and-coming place. It's fun, it's exciting, it's still new. So I think Michelin really helps that for Miami.
Hopefully we hear soon if they renewed the contract, because...
Oh, wow. Is that up for debate?
Yeah, it expired.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's expired. It's officially expired.
Okay.
And everyone keeps asking me. I'm like, I know nothing this time. I don't know yet.
Oh, wow.
I haven't heard anything about the renewal.
When will we know?
Michelin, come on. We're waiting. Yeah, we're hoping that they announce that it's been renewed for 3 or 5 more years. And then we're hoping that they add Broward and maybe Palm Beach. So that's the goal, the rumor.
Okay.
Yeah, it was only a 3-year contract.
Gotcha.
It's done.
Gotcha.
So I don't know what the holdup is. I know in New York, they're on the Canada route now. They're promoting that ceremony, and then they'll be talking about the New York ceremony. And then, come on, we're waiting.
Well, Miami, it's usually around springtime, right?
Right, but usually by the end of, depends, because they've only had to announce, oh, these are the new bibs, that kind of stuff. Now they have to announce, well, it's been renewed. We've decided, we looked at our research. It did great. It performed well. And because of this, we've renewed the city or I don't know if they're going to do the city at some point, So that announcement has not been made.
Wow. How do you feel about it?
I feel like they need to get on with it. Just let us know. There's always all these cliffhangers with them.
I think
But it makes it exciting.
Like that,
Right. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't.
Agreed.
I feel like it's changed,
Yeah.
Dining in general for us. What do you want listeners to know that we have not already covered, if anything?
I think there's a lot of behind the scenes things that are in play right now with Elastika as far as like, what we want to be environmentally friendly. We really care about the space. We really care about planet. There's no, separation between human health and planet health. It has to be correlated. Like I can't be talking all this game about like nutrition and nourishing food and then, well, where's that nutritious, nourishing food coming from? It's coming from the planet, right? So we have to take care of that. So I think that you'll see a lot of like minute things that are happening in Elastika with, biodegradable this or eco-friendly that, sustainable this and that. Like there's a lot of things that we do because we believe in it and we want to have a purpose in that, not just because we want to be like, here's our green star, right?
I was just going to tease you about that and say, here's the pitch for the green star.
Yep. No, I think that, like I said, it's correlated. You have to be fully engulfed in it. If it's like, this is our purpose, this is what we want to do. One of the reasons, like, I could easily kind of just do what I've done my whole career and just make creative, tasty food, and that would be it. It's actually much harder this way. It's a lot more thought into it. It's a lot more restrictive in a lot of different ways, where it's like, we can't use that ingredient because it doesn't stand by what we believe in.
Why didn't you, from the get-go, lead with a lot of this? Because I read nothing until the toast incident. There was nothing out there about the way that you're cooking and how it's different than everyone else.
I think we struggled with a little bit of our identity in PR at first, if I could be perfectly honest. Mm-hmm. And now if you look at our social feed, we got a new guy on there, Todd Coleman, who is also the same person that I used up in New York for years at Gabriel's, and he's just been leading the charge on that. So I think there was a bit of a lack of identity in that as well. But I think that's why, I come out to be on podcasts such as yours to be able to convey this message where it's very important I want guests to come in and feel a sense of kind of like calm, knowing that, we're trying to take care of that. We're trying to take care of, like you can come in and be at peace about what you're eating. You don't have to worry about it. It doesn't have to be a cheat. We're not looking for cheat days. We're just looking for that to be normal life. And I think there's a sense of loyalty that, that I kind of seek for. And by loyalty, I'll give an example of like, back in the day when Alinea first came out, you know what I mean? What Grant was doing was mind-blowing, and it was like,
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't comprehend it. And being a young cook, I was like, oh man. And like, I found myself defending Alinea before even setting foot in it, if that makes sense. So that kind of loyalty where it's like, I love what you guys stand for. You might not have even dined at Elastika, but I love the idea of what you stand for what we're trying to pull off. That's what I mean by loyalty, where we're trying to embrace it through not just the community. We have a huge international scene as well. Miami International Airport's a 15-minute drive from us. So we want not only the community to feel that, but we want it to be like when people are coming to Miami and to do their chain of restaurants, we just want to be on it. We want to be on that list.
I think it's great to start building up that route even more, because you're in the design district. It's a phenomenal building, but then the name Elastika, and it has the private social club after. Mm-hmm. So it lends itself to this is just another one of these Miami openings. So, but it isn't. So adding and exposing that it has much more depth to it is important, I think, to Elastika. I'm a fan.
Thank you.
I've been twice.
Thank you.
Hoping on a third soon. So
let me know.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm excited that this has been explained, and I will absolutely tell the listeners. I tell everyone that I talk to anyway already. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. I loved learning more about everything, and I'm sure the listeners are going to appreciate this as well. And I cannot wait, as I said, for my next visit. Thank you, the listener and viewer, for tuning in. I know I always say to please share your favorite episodes, but I mean it. Please share. You have no idea how much it helps the podcast. That's it for today. Until next time, ciao.
Thank you.
We did it.
You did it.
That's it.